Good morning, everybody. Welcome to another edition of E.W. Jackson for President of the United States of America. Glad to be with you again this morning. In case you're wondering, I'm in my own studio. I'm spending, you say, well, what, are you campaigning? Yeah, I am. In fact, I said in about a week I'll be in Iowa for several days. I plan to get back there several times. I'm going to be in South Carolina, in Nevada, in New Hampshire, campaigning very heavily in all of the early states and organizing in all of the other states. So I'm asking for your help, your support as a volunteer. Go to my website, ewjacksonforpresident.com, and sign up as a volunteer. Say, I'll collect signatures for you, I'll knock on doors for you, I'll call my friends for you. Whatever you can do to help. This is going to be a grassroots campaign, folks, and I'm really depending upon the Christian community to help me. I'm depending upon those who know and love God and understand that this nation does not survive without the blessing of Almighty God to stand with me, because no other candidate is going to say the things I'm going to say. And the things I'm going to say are the truth. But no other candidate is going to speak the truth because either they don't believe it or they're afraid to say it. But I'm going to say it. And I can tell you there are going to be some changes. If God sees fit that E.W. Jackson becomes President of the United States, there are going to be some dramatic changes in the nature of our federal government and what our Justice Department does and what our agencies do. And I cannot wait. And of course, I've gotten to some of that. I won't do that at the moment. But I've said, I'll tell you right now, just to reiterate, day one, Christopher Wray is fired. Day one, the Justice Department is completely revamped. Day one, every DEI, Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion office in the federal government and the military apparatus in the Pentagon, every single one of those offices is closed on day one. There'll be no more drag queen story hours, no more drag queen ads, no more of this gender bending confusion, no more trans operations, none of that stuff that's going to be funded by the federal government. People want to do that with their own lives. They want to mess their own lives up. They're that confused and messed up. They're certainly free in our country to do whatever they want to do with their lives. But they're not free to extort from the taxpayers the money to mess themselves up and to mess others up and to mess up our military, to mess up our government, to mess up our culture. They can finance that on their own, thank you very much. We don't have to pay for it. In fact, my administration will be a counter-revolutionary administration, and I would be seeking to reestablish and to restore America's cultural pillars, because I really believe these are the things that have made this country the greatest nation on earth. What are those cultural pillars? Well, faith in God, number one. Restoring the family as God ordained it, number two. That husbands and wives, fathers and mothers, and not this gender-bending confusion that the Democrat Party has bought into. I told you, the Democrat Party, folks, has become the party of Antichrist. It has become a cult-like party. And they try to point the finger at Republicans. Not that Republicans have nothing to answer for, because they do, but they try to point the finger at Republicans. But the Republican platform is holding fast to a traditional worldview, a biblical worldview, frankly, a Judeo-Christian worldview. And the Democrat Party has really got a demonic worldview. Their worldview is demonic. There's just no other way of saying it. Their worldview is, let's kill babies. Let's recruit children into sexual deviancy. Let's spend like there's no tomorrow on whatever we want to do, including sending money overseas to promote homosexuality and promote abortion and to promote atheism even. I mean, these people are completely off the rails. You won't hear another candidate say that, but it's the truth. And the thing is, the American people know it. And I think they're waiting for somebody to say it. I think there are a lot of Democrats who have completely emotionally and spiritually left the Democrat Party. They just don't trust Republicans. I'll tell you one thing, the black community certainly knows that the Democrat Party is in no way reflective of their spiritual or cultural or moral values. No way. So if I get the opportunity to serve as President of the United States, we're going to restore the pillars, the cultural, the spiritual pillars that made America the greatest nation in the history of mankind. And I just need your help. Go to my website, ewjacksonforpresident.com. Remember our 2020 Pathway to Victory. Pray for me for 20 minutes. Give $20.24 as often as you can. And talk to 20 people. And if you can't do all of that, do what of that you can. Okay? So you can't pray 20 minutes, pray 10. But I'm asking you to include me in your prayers and ask God's blessing and mercy and help for our campaign and for what I'm doing, for my health and strength to do it. I started off about to talk about what am I doing right now, because I'm in my studio, obviously. I'm not out on the campaign trail. Well, folks, just so you know, I'm spending anywhere from 3 to 6 hours a day on the telephones raising money, because that's what this campaign, that's what it takes. I'm spending anywhere from 3 to 6 hours every single day on the telephones, dialing, talking, because I just have to do that in order to have the funds to run a campaign. I'm still depending, I'm calling people, obviously, not calling people with $25 donors, because I'd not accomplish anything if I did that. I'm calling people who can give at a certain level, obviously. I've got fundraising consultants who are helping me with that. But folks, I'm telling you, in the end, I am convinced my campaign is going to run on the basis of your contributions, the 5, the 10, the 15, the 20, the 25 bucks from people all over this country, particularly from Christians all over this country, who want their voice to be heard, who want their values to be represented, who want to end this treating Christians and Christianity like persona non grata or like we're the plague. I'm telling you, that is why you haven't seen me in the mainstream media, because I'm coming at things from a Judeo-Christian perspective, and my top priorities are not what one would expect, but my top priorities say, without these, nothing else is going to work. The economy is not going to work. The military is not going to work. Our political system, our elections aren't going to work. Our criminal justice system aren't going to work. Is not going to work unless we come back to the fundamentals. All of the other stuff is going to collapse. Remember, Jesus said, if you lay your house, you build your house on a foundation, you dig deep and you lay the foundation on a rock. When the winds come and the rains beat and the floods flow, the house won't fall because it's founded on a rock. And what I'm trying to do is reestablish America on the rock. Because then we'll be able to deal with our economic problems. We'll be able to deal with our foreign policy problems. We'll be able to deal with our military problems. We'll be able to deal with our cultural problems when we come back to the rock. And what is the rock? The rock is the basis of the Declaration of Independence. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that we are not evolved, we are created, and we are endowed by our Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that our rights and liberties don't come from government. They are the grant of Almighty God, and therefore government has no right to take our freedoms, our liberty, our rights away. Of course, without due process of law, because a person has behaved in such a way that they are no longer capable of exercising the liberty that is their God-given right in the normal case. So aside from that, government has no right to encroach upon your liberty or mine. We have a fundamental right to keep and bear arms. We have a fundamental right to defend ourselves, our families, our property. Government has no right to restrict us in that, because it can't be there in all cases. In fact, it can't be there in any case when the danger is actually happening. Government arrives in the aftermath. That's a fundamental God-given right to defend ourselves. Government should not be infringing, and that's what the Founding Fathers said. The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. You got people now who think that that's antiquated, that we need to do away with that. because they would rather blame the instrument than blame the evil in the heart of mankind, because they really don't believe that people are evil. They believe that people are simply products of a terrible, unjust society, and that's why they do bad things. And so part of what you have to do is take away the instruments of their doing bad things, and then they won't do bad things. I mean, this is the sophistry that pretends to be postmodern thinking now. You know, we have arrived. We have transcended all of the old antiquated thinking based on stupid things like the Bible. All right. I wanted to, so let me come back to what I'm doing. Okay, so I'm spending most of my time right now raising funds, organizing, getting our campaign structure in place, working with my campaign manager, my consultant, to get our campaign structure in place, planning for how we're going to attack New Hampshire and South Carolina and Nevada and all these early states, Iowa, of course, first and foremost, to develop some momentum, to build some momentum. I will be getting on the road. Like I said, I'll be going to Iowa here shortly. I'll be in North Carolina. I'll be in Illinois. I've got a number of campaign stops, and I'll keep you posted on those, of where I'm going to be and when I'm going to be there. And you all just be praying for me as I travel. We just left the border. Oh, and by the way, what did I report? Notice there's no real big news coming from the border now. Now suddenly, boom, it erupts in Arizona. I told you the crisis is not over by any stretch of the imagination. It's worse than it's ever been because we don't see much of it now. Now we're getting another surge in Arizona, and suddenly people are paying attention again. But when I went to the border at Eagle Pass, I told you, this crisis is not over. By any stretch of the imagination, it's not over. They're trying to hide it and convince people that it's over, but it's not. And so there it is. It erupts. And again, I'm only one of 3 candidates who's even visited the border, which, again, I find that inexcusable, frankly. Inexcusable. You know, candidates are out here spouting about this, that, and the other, and here's an existential threat to the future of our country, and they're not even going to the border to talk to Border Patrol agents and figure out, well, what is going on, and what would I do about it as president? I haven't even heard from any of these candidates what they would do about controlling the border. You've heard from me in clear, unequivocal terms how I would handle the border. So, but look, here's what I wanted to share with you. I don't know how well you can see this. We'll be posting this here shortly. It's a wanted poster. It's a wanted poster. Can you see the pictures? George Soros and Joe Biden. We'll be posting this shortly if it's not posted already. Here's what it says. Wanted for conspiracy leading to the murder of innocent children in America's inner cities. Folks, we are approaching 360 murdered children in the inner cities of our country since Black Lives Matter started to defund the police, dismantle the police program. It has been one of the most deadliest times in the history of our country for the black community, and particularly innocent black children. Yeah, thanks very much, Patrisse Cullors and Black Lives Matter. Thanks very much, Kamala Harris, for getting people who are out there rioting and looting released from prison. Thanks very much, Al Sharpton, for running around with your bouffant hair on fire like America's the worst place in the world, how racist we are, when the biggest problem for black people today is being killed by a black criminal who is roaming the streets. And by the way, and so thank you very much, George Soros and Joe Biden, because Joe Biden's Justice Department is busy hunting for Donald Trump instead of hunting for the criminals who are making lives miserable, particularly in the cities of our country. So this wanted poster says, wanted Joe Biden and George Soros and the Democrat Party for conspiracy leading to the murder of innocent children in America's inner cities. It says, E.W. Jackson, candidate for president, is calling on the Justice Department to investigate the flow of money from George Soros-backed organizations to facilitate the riots, looting, and mayhem, that's misspelled, of the 2020 riots and defund the police movement, which lit, oh my goodness, I'm finding typos, folks, forgive me, which which led to the murders of hundreds of, you know what, let me mark this now, because, oh my goodness, I can't release this with typos in it, right? Can't do that. Riots leading mayhem. Of the 2020 riots, and defund the police movement, which led to the murders of hundreds of innocent children by criminals set free by their twisted policies and rogue prosecutors. Jackson says since the corrupt Biden administration, Justice Department, and the Democrat Party and are in the back pocket of George Soros. They are complicit in the murders of these children. As president, my Justice Department will hold accountable not only the criminals on the streets, but the criminals in the back rooms hiding behind their money and political power. Okay, well, I'm glad I read this to you because I found some typos I hadn't seen before. But anyway, typos and all, a wanted poster. Because, folks, my Justice Department would investigate George Soros and the organizations that are funneling money into these prosecutors for the purpose of making sure that they don't prosecute crime, which leads to the deprivation of civil and constitutional rights on the part of the people living in these communities who are being harassed, terrorized, robbed, raped, and murdered by these criminals in these communities. When this is done intentionally, as far as I am concerned, it is just as much a deprivation of rights as if George Soros went out there and pulled the trigger and shot somebody, or as if Joe Biden did it himself, because they are facilitating it, they're engineering it. Just like the mob boss who doesn't go out and do the hit, but gets somebody else to do it for him. And he's just as guilty. And as far as I am concerned, Joe Biden and George Soros are as guilty of the murders of these children as are the thugs who murdered them. Because these thugs ought to be in jail, and George Soros and Joe Biden and the Democrat Party and their machine is busy unleashing these people to kill, rob, rape black folks primarily in the inner cities of our country. And it's got to stop. And I can tell you, as President of the United States, I'd put a stop to it. George Soros would be under investigation. And if I found that George Soros, I mean, for example, if George Soros was actually facilitating and financing the rioting that went on, it's against the law to incite to riot. And if he's been doing that, he ought to be held accountable and fined or imprisoned for it. I got another one coming out, by the way, about Anthony Fauci, and I'll get to that one soon. I mean, you all realize, I think I said this yesterday, 15 people murdered in 5 days in Washington, D.C. And guess who the prosecutor is in Washington, D.C.? A George Soros-backed prosecutor. And I think I shared with you a story of this guy who's got 3 murders under his belt. 3 murders. Not tried as an adult, tried as a juvenile, given, I think, 7 years with the possibility of probation at any time. In other words, he could be literally out on the street in months. And you know what? Probably will be. I want to follow the money and find out, is there an intentional effort to unleash people like that on the streets to get people killed? What would be, excuse me, what would be the ultimate purpose? Destabilizing society so that people want some more draconian response that gives Democrats more power and control over everything and everybody. Because you've got politicians now in D.C. calling for the National Guard. And I don't have any problem in the appropriate circumstances calling on the National Guard, but these are the same people who were calling for the defunding of police. These are the same people who say all the police are racist and they're out to hunt down black men and all this. And now they're calling for the National Guard. I mean, make up your mind. If police could be fully staffed, if they could do their job, if we would stop vilifying cops and turning cops into a bunch of racist Ku Klux Klansmen in blue uniforms, if we would stop that nonsense and allow police officers to do their job, you wouldn't need the National Guard. If we would stop promoting a culture of snitches get stitches and stop this idea that somehow you owe your loyalty to the black criminal, not to the black victim, so that when the police come around, start asking questions about what happened, how did it happen, why did it happen, people are willing to say, yeah, I know exactly who did it. I know exactly who did it. And here's the person who did it. Because we're not going to have innocent children and innocent people killed in our community and have these thugs running free and arrogantly bragging about it and doing it over and over and over again. You realize that the solve rate for most of these murders hovers around 10%, particularly in these large cities, like I think in Chicago, it's 12%. That means, folks, 88 to 90% of these murders never get solved. And if these people don't end up in prison for something else they're caught for, they're roaming the streets. Bloodthirsty killers. And many times they've gotten a taste for blood and they like it. I'll never forget Angela Gregg saying that the police told her when they catch one of these guys who has committed an attempted murder on somebody else and ended up killing an innocent child, which is the way it usually works. These idiots can't shoot. And so they miss their target and kill some innocent person, often an innocent child. And when they ask them about it, expecting some remorse, expecting some regret, expecting them to say, I never meant to hurt a child. Instead they say, collateral damage. Their consciences are so seared over as with a hot iron. Their hearts are so hard that the normal human response to the injury or death of a child of deep sadness no longer affects them. These people need to be put in jail. I don't care what the color of their skin is. And this idea of mass incarceration is nothing but a Marxist ruse. You have to incarcerate the people who are a danger and a threat to the community, period. These people are not being incarcerated for jaywalking. They're not being incarcerated for loitering. They're not being incarcerated for even smoking a marijuana cigarette. They're being incarcerated for committing violent crimes for the most part. And I'm not saying that the criminal justice system cannot continue to be policed and tweaked and improved upon, and we do everything in our power to make sure that it is as just and as fair as we can make it, knowing that no institution of human invention is ever going to be perfect. But I'll never forget a guy saying to me at a meeting in Richmond, I was running for office at the time, and we were talking about prison reform, and he had just gotten out of prison, did a long stint for violent crime, but had gotten saved. God had saved his life, and he had a new lease on life, and he was looking at things differently. And he said to the group, it was about probably 20 of us there, and he said to the group, you know, I keep hearing this stuff about most of the people in prison don't belong there. He said, but everybody I met belonged there, including me. So, come on. This idea that somehow, you know, you can empty the prisons because most of the people don't belong there. I mean, you're asking for mass chaos. And by the way, I would revisit prison reform because any prison reform is really whistling through the graveyard unless we address the fact that until we rebuild families, until we create educational opportunity so that people who are looking to do something other than sell drugs or be a gangster have the ability, have a channel from which to escape from the ghetto. You know, again, you all know my background, but look, I was raised in the ghetto. And believe me, it was the ghetto. They call it the hood now, but it was the ghetto. It's the hood now, but it was the ghetto. It was rough. 3rd Street in Chester, Pennsylvania, and I grew up my whole life, my whole youth life on 3rd Street. And 3rd Street was probably the roughest part of Chester in the whole town. It was where you didn't go if you didn't have to, and I lived there. And look, what channeled me out was a father who taught me the value of education, demanded I do well academically, and then after a year of college, deciding that I wasn't clear what I wanted to do, didn't know what I wanted to do, I joined the Marine Corps. I went in a boy, I came out a man. And then that value of education once again kicked in. I went back to college. I finished college in 3 years, not 4. It took me 3 years to finish college. I don't often say that, but I was hungry to get my life, get my career started, whatever that might be. And at the time, I went back to college. Well, no, actually, by the time I went back to college after the Marine Corps, I knew exactly what I wanted to do. I knew I wanted to be a lawyer. Wasn't saved yet, but I knew I wanted to be a lawyer. So I went back to college with a purpose. And I wasn't playing around. I was studying. I was seeking to excel. So it wasn't some government program that got me out of the ghetto life and got me out of the gangs. It was a loving father, his guidance and direction, a sense of vision, and then, of course, the discipline to do what I needed to do in order to pursue what I wanted out of life. As I say, when my wife and I went back to school, I worked 2 jobs. I sold RCA contracts. Many of you watching me will remember this. Some watching me will not. But when televisions first came out, of course, they were like other appliances that, you call in the repairman to repair them when something went wrong. Now, a television lasts and we keep it a few years. And if something goes wrong with it, we get rid of it because they don't cost us, depending on the size of the television, of course. But a nice flat screen television costs you $150. So you don't call in a repairman who's going to charge you $100 to repair it. You get rid of the thing and buy another one. But at that time, I was on the phone in the evenings from 6 to 9 selling RCA contracts to people with color TVs. And then I would leave there and go to an all-night security guard job. I would do homework and study during my security guard, my security job. I sneak a nap in here and there too between my rounds because I had to walk rounds and hit a key. And then I'd come home the next morning, catch a nap before my first classes, and then head out for school. In fact, I had a terrible accident one time. In fact, I don't think I've ever told this story either. But I had a terrible accident. We at that time, my wife and I had a Volkswagen, and I'd done just what I've said to you. I got up that morning after a nap, after my all-night job, took a nap, got in my car, and fortunately, my wife, we sometimes went to school together because we went back to school together and graduated together. But for some reason that morning, she wasn't with me. I was by myself. And I always would take a shortcut through a residential area to avoid a light that was at a certain intersection. And folks, I know it was fatigue. I got disoriented, and my brain just wasn't functioning right, and I wasn't clear where I was. I thought I was still in kind of the residential area where traffic is very slow, very little traffic, and I'd moved out into a main thoroughfare and didn't realize I was there. And my car just kind of drifted out there. When I looked up and realized what I was in the middle of traffic that was moving 40, 45 miles an hour easily. And it was a Volkswagen bus barreling down on me. And by the time I saw him, it was too late. I mean, he hit the side of my car. He drove me. I was on the left-hand side of the road, and he drove me, but of course perpendicular, because I'm crossing the road, but I shouldn't be crossing that road. I should have stopped at that intersection and turned right, but not being clear where I was, I drifted out And I wasn't using any drugs. I wasn't, in any way inebriated, anything like that. It was the first thing in the morning. But just, I was working hard. And that thing hit my car, drove me all the way to the opposite side of the street. And literally, folks, literally, when the car came to a stop, that Volkswagen, the lights of that Volkswagen were like that. He had completely crushed the right side of the car. And if anybody had been sitting in the passenger seat, if my wife had been in that passenger seat, she would have been killed. There's no way she could have survived it, because it literally, in fact, it was like a giant grabbed the seat and folded it like that. And the Volkswagen bus was inside my car. And my reaction when I realized what had happened was to jump out of the car and look at myself to see, am I bleeding? Am I injured? What, and then I just sat on the side of the curb and just kind of sat there and got myself together, kind of in a daze. I said all that to say, I really believe that was the result of me trying to work 2 jobs, going to school, and all of that. And thank God he protected me and spared my life. Nothing like that ever happened again, by the way, but it did happen that time. And it was because my wife and I were hustling. We wanted to build a life for ourselves. We wanted to achieve something. We wanted to accomplish something. And by the way, folks, we didn't find race in our way at all. Everything we wanted to do, now we had to work hard, and we had to be disciplined, and we had to be clear, we had to have vision, we had to have goals, but everything we wanted to do, we did. That's America. That's America. And there are people who are trying to take that away, and we're not going to let them. And that's why I'm running for President of the United States. Look, God bless each and every one of you. Go to my website, ewjacksonforpresident.com. By the way, I still am president of STAND. I have not resigned. I've not taken a leave of absence. Believe it or not, I'm still meeting with my staff. I'm still giving guidance and direction. We do need your help with STAND. STAND is going to continue. In fact, I expect STAND to grow and to thrive. Go to our website, standamerica.us. Sign up as a Patriot Partner with a minimum donation of $25 a month or more, and I will send you a signed and numbered copy of my book. You can sign up as a Patriot Partner for any amount, and we'll send you a free gift. A T-shirt, I believe, is what we're going to be sending as a gift for your signing up as a Patriot Partner at any level below $25 a month. Listen, God bless each and every one of you. We are not going to allow our country to be destroyed by a bunch of Marxists, leftists, secularists, atheists, sexual deviants, and perverts. We are going to save America as a Judeo-Christian nation, a constitutional republic, and we're going to pass on to our posterity a nation that is great as the one or greater than the one we inherited. God bless each and every one of you. Stand up, step up, speak up, refuse to back up, because we cannot be defeated if we will not quit, because we are on God's side.